Welcome to the Daughter Arise channel. My name is Yvonne and this channel is all about bringing you content to do with childhood sexual abuse. On this channel I share things to do with my experience of going through this childhood trauma. I also cover news stories and other subjects to do with childhood sexual abuse. So if this is the type of content that you're looking for, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can be notified of any new uploads. And if you do like the content, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. So today guys, I'm covering a news story that I came across. Apparently this is something that happened quite a while ago, maybe 6 months ago. But the reason why I want to do this story is to give encouragement and hope to historical survivors of childhood sexual abuse. Especially, not just to all survivors of historical abuse, especially to those who are trying to have the courage to come forward, who have come forward and maybe are in the early stages or process of going through reporting their sexual abuse in childhood. So the headline reads, ex-Trump spiritual advisor surrenders on child sexual abuse charges. A former pastor of a Texas megachurch and ex-Donald Trump spiritual advisor surrendered to Oklahoma authorities on Monday on charges of child sex abuse. Now this story broke in March 2025. As I mentioned, this story is slightly older, but I wanted to share it for the reasons I said at the beginning of the video. Robert Preston Morris, 63, turned himself over to authorities in Osage County, where he was charged with 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child. Philip Barakak, a spokesman for the Oklahoma Attorney General's office, told the Associated Press. Court records show an Osage County judge set a $50,000 bond and ordered Morris to surrender his passport. His attorney, Mac Martin, declined to comment on the charges, but said he participated entering a not guilty plea on Morris's behalf. Morris resigned last year as pastor of Gateway Church in the Dallas suburb of Southlake after a woman accused him of sexually abusing her in the 1980s. The victim, referred to in the indictment as CC, told authorities the abuse started when she was 12 years old, and Morris was a traveling evangelist staying in Hominy, Oklahoma, with her family, according to the Attorney General's office. She said the abuse continued for 4 years. Cindy Claimshire, Morris's accuser, said in a statement that she's very grateful to the authorities who have worked to make the indictment possible and was hopeful justice will ultimately prevail. After almost 43 years, the law has finally caught up with Robert Morris for the horrific crimes he committed against me as a child, she said. Now it's time for the legal system to hold him accountable. The AP typically does not name people who said they have been sexually assaulted, but Clemshire said she would like her name to be included. Morris was known, I'm not sure what AP is, but yeah, Morris was known to be politically active. The church hosted Trump on its Dallas campus in 2020 for a discussion on race relations and the economy. Morris could face 20 years in prison for each of the 5 charges, according to the Attorney General's office. So as you just heard from the story, this brave lady, 43 years later, decided to go to the police about what this pastor had done to her. I think that she's very brave because, you know, it must have plagued her a lot and been on her mind a lot, the injustice and the abuse that she experienced at his hands. And also as well, probably a lot of kind of searching her conscience as well, because here is somebody who is quite a well-known pastor. I don't really know that much about him, but I've heard his name before, of a megachurch, so known by a wide community of church people. As mentioned in the story, he stayed at her parents' house as a traveling evangelist, and he used those opportunities to sexually abuse her. It must have been very difficult for her to come against that, knowing obviously how her parents might have felt about him, you know, the community, the church community and other people, because from what I see with a lot of these American kind of televangelist megachurch pastors, they have huge churches, usually tens of thousands of people attend their church. They're treated like celebrities. They're treated, in higher esteem than Jesus himself. And a lot of the time when people do come out against these so-called celebrity figures in the church, they are really looked down upon, made to feel on top of the shame and guilt that she might have probably felt. They're made to feel, and I'm including other survivors here from stories I've seen before as well, like they're the devil themselves for speaking up about what people's so-called favourite pastor has done. So it must have caused her a lot of kind of searching in herself whether to do it and whether she'd be able to stand up against the scrutiny and all the other things that come along with speaking out against people's favourite, especially about childhood sexual abuse. But she did it, and for that, I can only applaud her. It's a very courageous thing to do. She was afforded by law to be able to stay anonymous. They referred to her by her initials of CC. But again, she has said, no, I want people to know this is something that happened to me. Obviously, it's very good that they have that there to protect survivors or victims who may not feel strong enough to do that. But in this case, she felt strong enough to share her name as well. My only hope for her is that she gets the justice that she deserves. 12 to 16 years, that's the ages that she went through childhood sexual abuse. That's 4 years of a really formative part of her life, her teens. It must have been very, very difficult for her. It must have caused her all kinds of, problems, and she deserves justice. I only hope that she does get it, because we know that the law can be quite lenient sometimes with those who have done, sexual offences against children. I actually think there's more hope for her over there in America, because America's sentencing system is very, very harsh, and the sentences they give out, they mean them. So if it's 5 counts and they're saying that the attorney's office can give up to 20 years for each count, even if it's 1 count she gets, I hope that she gets all the counts that that they have said that her assault has fallen under. But even if she gets one of those accounts, that's 20 years. Over here, that's laughable. Somebody over here could, be doing the same things as what she's experienced, but they will get a slap on the wrist. They'll get probably 3 years and probation and all this type of stuff and time off for good behaviour. In my personal opinion, the law system over here for survivors is a bit of a joke. In some cases, it has worked well for the victims in some cases, and that's great. But overall, it is very, very difficult to get, long and hard sentences, even for, cases where the victim has experienced extreme abuse. It doesn't really say in the news story when the court case was going to proceed. If I find that information, I will add it here at the end of the video. But I just wanted to share this with you, and the link to the story is down below. So further to what I've just shared, I've managed to find out what is happening with this court case. I have found out that this mega church pastor has pleaded guilty. So that is something that is a huge relief to hear, because I think if he didn't plead guilty, I think that it would have put the survivor, the victim of this abuse, in a position where she'd probably have to go on the stand and be cross-examined and all that type of stuff. Whilst, it is unfortunate what has happened to her, and it's something that's been very traumatizing for her, I think it is a positive thing that he has owned up, because we know that paedophiles and child sexual offenders don't usually, in the majority of cases against their victims, ever own up to what they've done. So basically, he has got a plea agreement, and it looks like he has been handed a 10-year sentence. But the worst thing about it is that he will only serve 6 months in jail and be on probation the rest of the time. So that is a bit of a disappointing outcome. Going from, what the Attorney General said about each count being up to 20 years each in jail, to 10 years of a 10-year sentence with only 6 months in jail and on probation is quite disappointing to hear. He must also register as a sex offender, and he has to pay the victim $250, which is about 185,000 Great British pounds in restitution. This all happened on the 3rd of October, so quite recently. The victim has said, she said through tears, that his abuse has ripped into every part of her life. And that's one of the things that we have to remember, and I can definitely sympathise with her. When you go through childhood sexual abuse as a child, it does affect the way you look at life, relationships, people, how you view yourself. I can only feel very sad for her, and I hope and pray that she can get the support and help that she needs to be able to process this. It certainly wasn't the outcome that I thought would happen. It's certainly not the outcome that she wanted. Morris has said that he morally failed this young lady, and he's right, he did. He was in a position of trust as a pastor, as somebody who was leading in God's church, in a very, very high position of trust, and yet he used that trust to abuse the most vulnerable. All the way around, it's a very sad story, because from the looks of things as well, it looks like she told her parents back in 1987, but no one called the police. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier on in the video. When this type of thing happens, when they have a favourite pastor, one who's popular, who's a celebrity, we've seen it time and time again, not just in the Pentecostal church or the Baptist church, we've seen it time and time again in the Roman Catholic Church as well. When people have a favourite pastor, pope, vicar, somebody who's doing a lot in the community, somebody who's popular on the outside doing these things, they will not speak up, even if they have concerns about them with children, even if children raise concerns to their parents. Nothing really is done. It is so, so sad, and I can only hope and pray that she gets the support and help that she needs. Anyway, that is it for this video. Until the next one, take care.